All right, YouTube, this is it. This is the second one. Don't know really how to start it out, but YouTube is difficult, man. Doing this has always been difficult. So I wanted to make my second video on something that I've started doing recently that I'm absolutely loving, and it's time lapses. I just started picking it up maybe in the last year or two as like an actual thing to do. I've done a couple of them before back in Houston where it was just mostly just traffic shots and cars going back and forth. I've done a hyperlapse of like, there was this graffiti thing that said Houston inspired, and I did a good shot of that, but that's been years ago. So now I've been going out and getting time lapses of the mountains, and I really need to go get more urban environments, but I've been going out to the mountains and shooting a lot of time lapses, mostly of Dream Lake, because that's the one I've been back to multiple times because I've just had people coming back and forth. And I'm like, let's go to Dream Lake, and I always get a time lapse there no matter what. One of my favorite things about time lapses though is the fact that you get to be still. When you set up your camera and you start your time lapse, you have, you know, your, what is that thing called? Intervalometer, that's it. Once you get your camera set up with your intervalometer, like there's nothing left for you to do but wait for it to be done. Time lapses, depends on what you're going for, can take up to half hour to an hour and a half depending on what you're shooting and how long you want that time lapse to be. Because normally I shoot my time lapses at 5 seconds a piece and just slightly under, maybe like 1/6 shutter, just to get, you know, that motion to not look so jittery. But after it's all set up, there's nothing left for you to do but just sit there in the moment. And that's the perfect thing about a time lapse is I love the mountains. So when I'm doing a time lapse, just sit there and I can just enjoy it. It's like painting a picture to me. Like you set your canvas up and then all you do is look at your subject and what you're shooting. And it's beautiful, and you can just live there in that moment for a good 45 minutes before you have to do anything else. So another piece about that is you want to use an intervalometer. Most cameras now have a time-lapse setting, but what it's doing is it's taking a photo from video. So it's extra compressed, and in the end, it's good for YouTube, but if you want to put it and sell it like on a stock website or anything else, you want it in pictures. You need to go through the actual post process of doing pictures rather than, you know, just stills from video, because it's gonna have artifacts and compression, and you don't want that. You want nice, crisp and clear photos, preferably in RAW, and go about the correct like post-production process on a time lapse. So for the time lapse, we're gonna be using a EOS R with a Rokinon 35mm because it's a manual lens and it doesn't have image stabilization. It won't. Sometimes the picture will do a weird thing when it has the image stabilization off, with the internal stabilization. If you have a autofocus lens, you want to switch that off and just keep it in manual and keep it in with the image stabilization off, because sometimes it can warp the picture a little bit through the thing, but usually the post-processing will get rid of that. But you know, do what you can out in the field and not in post. So that's it for here. We're gonna go over to the spot now and we're gonna start working on that time lapse. I accidentally turned the mic off. That's great. So I gotta do everything over again. So we made it to the spot. It's basically an hour before the sun sets, and as you can probably see behind me, it's way more cloudy than it was earlier today. So we're gonna get a lot of clouds moving, but we're not gonna get that perfect sunset like I was hoping for with the pretty colors dancing off the clouds. So, but it'll still be nice nonetheless. I'll just have to come back another day. I got the time lapse running over there. It's shooting a picture about every 10 seconds at 1/6 shutter at f11. So it should be a pretty decently smooth time lapse. I'm just making sure no one's messing with my camera. There's a couple cars over there. So I'm actually talking to the camera with people here. So that's a huge step for me. So with time lapses, it's all about patience. You really have to find your perfect time of day. Like sometimes you can't just grab your camera and go, especially for landscapes. You got to make sure your weather's right. Like if the sky is clear, what's gonna move in the sky? You're just gonna have this area of dead space. Like right now, it's very cloudy, but those clouds are gonna move. So there's an element of motion to the shot. So it's not gonna be a complete waste. I came out here and did a time lapse when there was nothing in the sky when I first started out, and there was nothing going on. It looked just like a picture, even though you could sometimes see some cars moving down on the street down below. That was it. So one of the big things is, checking your weather, checking to make sure that where you're going is not gonna be filled with people that are gonna get in your way. Like every time I go to Dream Lake, there are at least 3 people that will go and stand in my shot. So I have to cut around that. But like people are just oblivious to what you're doing, and so you have to work around that. So if you can get out of the way and get your shots in an hour and no one get in your way, it's a good day. I realized in my first video I forgot to link all my social media stuff, so I'm gonna have to do that for this one. So I hope you guys can come over. I primarily do everything on Instagram nowadays, so if you want to come over to Instagram, follow me, that'll be awesome. We're gonna keep up with posting here. Now I just got to figure out more videos to do. So luckily this one popped into my mind today. But I hope we can keep up with the roll. It's got to be practice, Maybe I'll not post a week because I'm thinking of ideas. But I'm hoping that if I continue to do this in practice, that we'll continually roll with ideas. I think for the next video, I'm gonna get a chest rig for the GoPro, and then I'm gonna walk around Denver and do street photography. So I think that's what the next video is, and I'll probably do that, maybe even go do that this week, so that way I can edit the pictures this weekend. All right, guys, until next time, I'm gonna post the time lapse at the end of this, so I hope you like it.